I said the same thing to Miss Tina Knowles. You guys put in the work, and obviously the talent was there with your kids and your grandkids.
What work does she put in?
OMG. It's wild how Mathew Knowles seems to have shifted the narrative completely. First downplaying Tina Knowles' role in shaping Destiny's Child legendary success, and now allegedly taking things even further by throwing shade in a whole new direction. The situation has escalated into shocking territory, with claims surfacing that he's now accusing her of something as bizarre as poisoning people with her gumbo. It's the kind of unexpected twist that has everyone doing a double take, turning what started as subtle criticism into full-blown controversy. The drama feels bigger, messier, and far more intense than anyone anticipated, and honestly, it's leaving people questioning what's really going on behind the scenes. Phew, the shade is getting real messy, y'all. So here's what went down. People couldn't stop talking after the Houston Health Department stepped in and temporarily shut down Mama Tina's gumbo stand following a formal complaint. Now, according to officials, the situation was handled pretty quickly. Mama Tina reportedly cooperated fully, followed every recommendation given, passed a follow-up inspection, and was cleared to reopen in just 12 hours. Sounds simple enough, but that's where things started raising eyebrows. Folks began questioning how the stand managed to reopen so fast when the inspection report painted a much more serious picture. For one, the food wasn't even being prepared at the licensed location listed on the permit. It was coming from somewhere completely unapproved. Then there was the issue of the gumbo itself being stored in containers that didn't meet safety standards. And it didn't stop there. Inspectors also couldn't confirm whether proper cooling procedures were followed for pre-cooked batches, which is a major red flag when it comes to food safety. To make matters worse, some items that were supposed to be frozen were allegedly found thawed, increasing the risk of contamination and potential foodborne illness. And unfortunately, it didn't stay theoretical. Reports started surfacing that people actually got seriously sick after eating the gumbo, with claims pointing toward bacterial infection. One person even came forward, saying the gumbo made them ill and that they personally contacted the health department. In a follow-up message, an official explained that the temporary closure happened because there were discrepancies between what was listed on the permit and what was actually happening behind the scenes. They also confirmed that all gumbo on site had to be thrown out, not only due to those inconsistencies but also because of improper storage and the inability to verify safe cooling practices for pre-cooked food. All in all, what seemed like a quick fix turned into a full-blown controversy, leaving people seriously questioning how something flagged with so many issues was back up and running in less than a day. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, the situation took another turn. Officials confirmed that the gumbo in question couldn't be served at all moving forward, at least not until a completely new permit application is submitted, properly reviewed, and approved on site by a health officer, with all required fees paid. Until then, operations are officially on hold. Now here's where the drama thickens. Rumor has it that Mathew Knowles is also side-eyeing the entire situation, asking the same questions everyone else is thinking. And honestly, whatever is going on between him and Tina Knowles seems deeper than what we're seeing on the surface. But let's rewind for a second to understand how all of this even started. Back in February, Tina, also known as Mama Tina, announced that fans have been begging her for years to release her famous gumbo. She finally delivered by launching Miss Tina's Gumbo at the 2026 Houston Rodeo, offering two main options: a loaded seafood version packed with beef sausage, chicken, shrimp, and blue crab, and a simpler chicken and sausage bowl. At first, it was a full-on success story. The booth drew huge crowds, with long lines forming as people eagerly paid nearly $30 per serving. Early reactions were glowing, with customers praising the rich flavor, while Tina proudly shared that her gumbo was slow-cooked for an impressive 16 to 18 hours. But as the hype grew, so did the mixed reactions. Some customers swore it was the best gumbo they'd ever tasted, even at that steep price. Others, however, weren't nearly as impressed, rating it around a 5 out of 10 and saying it was just okay. Then came the critics, especially those familiar with authentic New Orleans-style gumbo, who didn't hold back. One reviewer claimed it tasted more like a beef soup than traditional gumbo, and even called out the use of crackers on the side, saying that's not how it's supposed to be served. There were also questions about that long cooking time, with some arguing that 16 to 18 hours is excessive and could either dry out the dish or suggest the ingredients weren't fresh to begin with. And then the internet did what it does best, took things way further. Some comments turned downright savage, with people calling the gumbo swamp water, saying it smelled off, or even jokingly accusing Tina of putting some kind of voodoo into it. One particularly brutal reaction compared the taste to watered-down noodle seasoning, while another person couldn't even finish a bite because of the smell, describing it as something like burnt fish mixed with gravy. It got to the point where some reviewers didn't even want to take a second taste. So what started as a highly anticipated food launch quickly spiraled into a whirlwind of hype, criticism, and controversy, leaving everyone divided, confused, and definitely talking. At this point, some people were completely done with it. One person even said they'd rather leave the gumbo for the dogs and walked away without finishing it. But the drama didn't stop at Harsh Food, who was live streaming near her gumbo stand at the Houston Rodeo. That brief exchange quickly blew up online, splitting social media right down the middle. Some people defended Tina, saying she had every right to check someone recording her up close. Others, however, argued that filming in a public setting is completely fair game and claimed she was just frustrated because of the growing criticism. And then there were those who took it even further, calling her one of the most embarrassing celebrity moms and questioning why she seems to stay in the spotlight instead of stepping back like other famous parents. People started making comparisons, pointing out that you rarely see the mothers of stars like Rihanna or Cardi be putting themselves front and center like this. According to critics, the focus should be on the superstar daughters, not the parents, and they found it strange that Tina was getting as much attention as the artists themselves. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any messier, even more shocking claims started surfacing. Videos began circulating of customers saying they got sick after eating the gumbo. One woman, Erica, shared footage of herself looking visibly unwell, with swollen eyes and stomach issues. She explained that before trying the gumbo, she had only consumed water and Cheeto puffs, leading her to believe the illness came directly from the food. Concerned, she reported the situation to the Houston Health Department and later documented her visit to a doctor, where she underwent multiple lab tests to determine what caused her symptoms. According to her account, everything pointed back to the gumbo. With multiple complaints rolling in, the food stand was temporarily shut down, but what really shocked people was how quickly it reopened. In just 12 hours, it was back in business, and that raised even more suspicion. The official report didn't exactly calm nerves either. It described a situation that felt far from minor. There were claims that the gumbo had been prepared in unlicensed kitchens, then transported to the rodeo in containers that weren't even approved for food safety. Inspectors also noted they couldn't confirm whether the food had been cooled properly, which is a serious concern when it comes to preventing contamination. And yet, despite all that, the stand was up and running again almost immediately. That's when the whispers really started. People began wondering if Tina's connection to Beyoncé had anything to do with how quickly things were resolved. No one could say for sure, but the timing definitely had folks talking. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, it seems like Mathew Knowles hasn't been staying quiet either. Those who've been following their history know there's been tension brewing between him and Tina, and recently, it appears to have intensified. A lot of people started noticing something was off after an interview with Candace Gibson began making rounds online. During that conversation, Candace praised both Mathew and Tina for their roles in building Destiny's Child into one of the most iconic groups in music history, highlighting the work they both put in behind the scenes. But Mathew didn't seem to agree with that narrative. He pushed back, questioning what exactly Tina contributed. When the interviewer mentioned her influence on styling and shaping the group's visual identity, he briefly acknowledged it, but his tone made it clear there was still underlying tension. All of this combined, food controversy, public clashes, and resurfaced interviews, has turned what should have been a simple food venture into a full-blown spectacle that just keeps getting more complicated by the day. Absolutely right. The styling, the image, I'll give you that. That was about as far as Mathew Knowles was willing to go, and even then, viewers could feel the tension. The way many people interpreted his response, it came off like he was minimizing Tina Knowles' contributions, subtly suggesting that he was the one carrying most of the weight behind Destiny's Child's success. The moment turned noticeably uncomfortable, prompting Candace Gibson to quickly step in and frame the group's rise as a shared effort between the two. But before the conversation could recover, Mathew abruptly shut the interview down altogether, leaving viewers stunned. Now, let's be fair. Mathew doesn't always get the recognition he deserves for building Destiny's Child into a global powerhouse. But publicly throwing subtle jabs at the very woman who stood beside him during that journey, that didn't sit right with a lot of people. Especially considering that when Mathew stepped away from his job to manage the group full-time, Tina was the one holding everything together behind the scenes, running her salon to keep the finances stable while also shaping the group's iconic look and creative direction. What made things even more suspicious is that, in the original version of the interview, that shady moment wasn't even included. It only surfaced days later through a leaked clip, which left many people confused about what really happened behind the scenes. But one thing is clear, Tina caught wind of it, and she wasn't about to let her efforts be erased. Instead of directly clapping back, she took a more strategic route. She reposted a feature celebrating her legacy in fashion, particularly highlighting her influence on Destiny's Child's signature style during their early years. Alongside it, she added a simple but pointed message: gratitude for being recognized. It was subtle, but it spoke volumes, and clearly showed she wasn't here for the narrative being pushed. Meanwhile, with the gumbo controversy at the Houston rodeo already making headlines, whispers started circulating that Mathew might be fueling the drama even further. Allegedly, he's leaning into the more extreme accusations, painting Tina as someone chasing attention at the expense of the family's image. Some claims even suggest he believes she's doing too much, especially given that their daughter, Beyoncé, is already a global icon and billionaire. To many, it's coming off as next-level pettiness. And honestly, the timing is raising eyebrows. Mathew is currently promoting his own Destiny's Child-related projects, and it seems like every time Tina receives praise, whether for styling, branding, or being the glue behind the scenes, he reacts in a way that shifts the spotlight back to himself.